You are not going to make me cry up here.
I'm sorry.
Welcome to Next Chapter Podcast, and I'm TD Jakes, your host, and I'm excited today to present to you a very, very special guest, my daughter, a renowned pastor, entrepreneur. She's also a New York Times best-selling author. As CEO of Woman Evolve, she's on a powerful mission to help women evolve into the best version of themselves, earning her recognition as a Time 100 Next honoree. She's also a powerful wife and daughter, and I'm glad to have her with me today. Please welcome Sarah Jakes Roberts once again. There's nobody I would rather interview than you. I'm vested in you. I watch from one side, you watch from the inside, and I watch you grow and develop. I'm honored to have you here today to be a guest on my podcast, and I thank you for taking the time to make yourself available. Chapter number 1, Preacher's Daughter. Life is many splendid things, many chapters, many ups, many downs. You have to have resilience in order to be able to do it. I would love to take you back to the days you were born.
Oh.
Yeah, all the way back. I know you don't remember this, but I remember this. I remember rushing up to the hospital with a little red dress and some barrettes, preparing to take you home from the hospital in the hills of West Virginia. We started out in Charleston, West Virginia. When you talk about that and when you think about that, you were my second daughter, my youngest daughter, and I was excited and intimidated, barely making ends meet, trying to make it do what it do. And like most fathers, we get preoccupied in being protective and being providers. But there's much more to parenting than those two things alone. And you learn that as you go along. What is your favorite memory from your childhood?
Oh. When I think about my childhood, I think about a lot of times in the kitchen with my siblings, unfortunately, because they get on my nerves now. But, growing up Jakes, as I call it, is such a unique experience. And not many people understand what it's like to be normal and regular, but to also have these expectations placed on you. But in the context of me and these 4 other people, we got it. And it was a space to be normal and to explore our identities and to get on each other's nerves and to forgive and to love again and to make mistakes. And so I think about us being in the kitchen, washing dishes and cleaning up and cracking jokes and talking about one another. I feel like my siblings were so integral in my identity development.
I think about all the stuff you all cooked, learning to cook, that you experimented on me. I'm glad to be alive.
Sacrifice Bishop.
Yeah, I ate it whether it was good or not. Now, her mother's a different story, but I ate it all, and now they can both cook like amazing. Like, in fact, all 3 of them, 4 of them, actually are great cooks. And my stomach was the incubator, the tube, the test tube,
Some could argue that it added length to your years, the resilience, the love that you experienced.
Yes. Yes, some could argue that. Some could argue that. Some could argue that I had my stomach pump. How was it being one of the youngest siblings?
Even though I'm one of the youngest, I don't feel like I'm one of the youngest.
Okay.
I feel like, and perhaps it's because I had to grow up so fast. Maybe it's because I'm naturally a little bit more maternal, but I always felt like I could provide some element of caretaking as it related to my siblings. So on one hand, I was the youngest, but also I felt like I took on a lot of the responsibilities of just nurturing and care if you guys were traveling or out of town. And I feel like in many ways that shaped who I am today as it relates to a sense of responsibility.
It's funny you say that because I'm the youngest in my family, but a lot of the responsibility fell on me. Yeah. And so I really didn't feel babied as much as I felt responsible, and I had to be responsible. in part because of my father's illness and all the things that went along with that. There was no room in our lives for me to be a child. I had to grow up fast. You had to grow up fast. Find yourself in a situation where you had to be both a daughter and a mama at the same time, and you had to be responsible enough emotionally and mentally to handle it. That's a lot of weight to put on a person. It's a lot of weight. What is your funniest memory with your siblings?
I don't think that they're appropriate for the next chapter. I'll be honest,
Okay.
those rascals really were something else to raise. But I think, we grew up in a generation where, redirection had many expressions and and redirection from your parents came through many different types of expression. And I think some of my favorite memories were probably my ear to the door as redirection was being given to some of my siblings.
I see.
Yeah, the ear hustling that came along with that. You like that?
Fran, yeah, I love how you made me look good. You made me look good.
I did.
Yeah, I appreciate that. In other words, let's leave it the way you left it.
Yes, period. Amen.
Chapter number 2, teen pregnancy. What was one of your most embarrassing moments as a kid?
Probably my pregnancy.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. I think when most people think embarrassing, they're thinking like you fell down the steps or you did something that in time you can look back and say it wasn't that big of a deal. But I know that pregnancy marks me so greatly that even when I reflect on my childhood, I have this overwhelming sense of fear and anxiety that overshadows the joy that I know was there. But I just think that experience shaped so much of how I saw everything that happened in my life. And that pregnancy and having to find a way to keep my head up and still going to church. And the thing about teen pregnancy is like, it's not one of those things where it's just a church rule, right? Like, I think that you can do things that aren't acceptable in church, but you can go into the world and they're like, child, that ain't nothing. But teen pregnancy is one of those things that whether you're in the church or the grocery store, people realize that there's something that's happened here that is out of sequence. And so the weight of existing with, this proverbial scarlet letter was the most embarrassing thing that I felt like I had to deal with. But also, I really feel like because of my personality, because of how disconnected I felt from faith, that my son really protected me. I think that in the moment I saw it as embarrassment, but I think that he gave me this sense of identity, this sense of responsibility where I couldn't go too far.
Right.
I think I would have been a lot more adventurous, a lot more dangerous, a lot more disposable as it related to my worth and identity if I didn't have this little person counting on me. And so he gave me a grounding and a weight that I think I needed at an early age, because I think later teens, early 20s, without having him in my life, that I don't know that I would be here.
Yeah.
Because, I was down for whatever with the baby. Well, next chapter is all truth.
Yeah.
But he became gravity for me in a world that was spinning very fast, in a life where I wasn't always sure that I fit. My son became this puzzle piece that I knew I had to hang on to. And so though publicly there was some embarrassment, I think the process of time has revealed to me that I needed him to tether me to something that was real.
One thing I'm wondering about, in between all of that, before all of that happened, we were in West Virginia.
Yeah.
And moving from West Virginia to Dallas, do you think that because by that time my ministry was exploding and I was doing Mega Fest and Woman Are Loose was exploding, traveling all over the world on the cover of magazines, and all of a sudden people had a microscope and a telescope into our house and into our lives. Do you think it would have been easier to navigate had you gone through that while we were in West Virginia?
No, let me tell you why. Because, I've had to look at this through several lenses. I think that more than anything, I think that because your life took off so rapidly,
Yes.
that we just needed an interpreter, a translator.
Right.
And I'm not sure that we would have had that in West Virginia or Texas. Someone that says, this is what's happening, this is where you fit, it's okay. And I think that things just took off so quickly. I guess that I'd have to ask you, do you think that had we lived in West Virginia and maybe things hadn't taken off so quickly, do you think that it would have maybe shifted the presence and ability to kind of help us navigate what was happening, not just in your world, but in our own little worlds of development and change and puberty? And
I think it would have been, in some ways, I think it would have been tougher because small towns have a tendency to be paid in place. And everybody's whispering and everybody's talking. It's a different kind of trauma.
sure.
You don't have to worry about the news reporters and the cover of magazines and all that kind of stuff, but you have to worry about the beauty shop and the barber shop and all the people whispering about all those sorts of things. The one thing that gives it some advantage is I think a lot of women related to your story in the most amazing way. Fast forward to, I never said anything, so they need to understand that. I never publicly said anything all throughout the pregnancy because I felt like it was your story to tell. And I think a lot of times parents take it upon themselves to tell their children's story before they're ready emotionally to be able to handle it. And I wanted you to handle it in your own words and in your own language. I didn't know you were going to handle it while you were introducing me in front of about 20,000 people as we had Woman Our Loose at Lakewood.
I had my son Malachi at the age of 14, and there are no thoughts in the room that I hadn't at one time thought about myself. And I remember after coming back to church, my dad made Malachi and I stand up and he welcomed us back into the service. And I remember in that moment feeling like he had my back.
What was that like for you?
You know, I kind of did it thinking that it would make, because I was blogging at the time.
Okay.
So I started this blog, and at the time I'm in my first marriage, and I'm trying to figure out some of the recurring issues we were experiencing, and like, just how did I get here?
Yeah.
Where this is my definition of love, where I feel stuck, where anger is the closest emotion that I can feel. So I'm processing this through a blog. And then I'd end each blog kind of like with a prayer or something that I would hope someone would say to me. And people started saying, oh my gosh, that's so inspiring. Or you gave me the words that I didn't know were trapped inside of me. And they started calling me inspiring. And they started calling me authentic and vulnerable. And it started to feel like people were proud of me. People felt like this was ministry. And I felt like, you know what? I'm going to tell them that I got pregnant as a teenager so they will leave me alone. You know what I mean? Like, this is not ministry. I'm just a girl. This is my story. And if I tell you this, then you will, go away. You'll say, oh my gosh, she's not good enough. She's not this, she's not that. And it was the very opposite thing that happened.
Yes. Was that shocking?
Yes. It continues to be shocking because whatever, we can talk about that later. But, it was very shocking to me because I think I had some experiences that grounded this theory in my head. But the theory in my head was, because you did this, you are not acceptable. You are not adequate. You have no place in ministry, and you should certainly not be talking about God. And I think I had some experiences that kind of grounded that. And so the fact that people kind of felt like maybe if she can figure out who God is, maybe if grace exists for her, it exists for me as well. And so I didn't know. There were women who were 70 years old coming up to me saying, I had my baby at 13 too. I had my baby. Like these little secrets that we were carrying around that were impacting who we saw ourselves as and impacting our ability to really trust what God says about us. Because if I am fearfully and wonderfully made, but what about this baby? What about this abortion? What about this? What about these things that have happened to me? Mm-hmm. And you're telling me that there's a God who will who will see through them. Because overlook makes it seem like he doesn't look at them at all. Mm-hmm. But he will see them and still say, fearfully and wonderfully made, and still say, I know what you did to ease the pain, and I still love you. There's still hope for you. And I needed to believe that that was true, and I think that they did too.
You know what's really funny about that? You walked up on that stage expecting to be rejected, and so did I.
Mm.
So did I. I was a man. Nobody would publish Woman Are Loose when I first wrote the book. Nobody had any reference of men writing to women about the trauma that they've been through. Nobody was talking about molestation back then. Nobody was talking about spousal abuse and self-medication and all that kind of stuff. I started talking about all of it, but I walked up there with the same trepidation that you did, expecting to be rejected, and instead got mobbed with people, which it took me a while to believe them. Even though they were coming in masses, my own insecurities made me wonder, was it really real? Could I really trust it? Is it really stable? Is it really going to stay? And I thought it was really odd that you had the same kind of feelings that I did. And I was the youngest sibling, you were the youngest daughter, and you go through that. But there's something about the youngest child that does something to you. You get to see the other ones grow up and you learn from them. And I think there's a certain compounded interest of wisdom that comes upon you as a result of seeing life as a voyeur and then experiencing it for yourself. And it helps you to grow and to go. You did all of that. You, by the way, when you got up on the stage and said that, I was like totally shocked.
I'm sure.
I was shocked. You should have warned me. You should have texted me.
No, because you would have told me no. Doesn't my history show you that I'm not going to ask because you would have told me no?
I wouldn't. I don't think I would have.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think I would have. I just wanted you to be ready. I was never ashamed of you. I was never.
I don't think you would have said no because you were ashamed of me, but you're so protective.
Oh my God, yes.
That I could see you
Yeah.
saying no. Like, don't you throw yourself out this world out there, chew you up, eat you alive.
Yeah.
But I could see you doing all of those things. I don't think you never made me feel like you were ashamed of me, but I do think that I felt your disappointment.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a parent myself, if I just try to put myself in your shoes, I can experience that. But I think because we had such a close bond before I got pregnant,
Yeah.
like I was the one who would be up in the morning.
Right.
I was the one who was like doing the business stuff and accounting and writing checks if you guys were out of town. Like we had just this bond, and I could feel the shift in our relationship after I got pregnant.
Wow.
But it didn't feel like this. It didn't feel like ashamed. It felt like disappointment.
Yeah, I admit that. I think it was disappointment, but it was unfair too because I didn't really see you as a human. I saw you as a princess, a daddy's girl. Listen, this girl would stop. We'd be on the highway driving down 64. I was driving. She was too little. She would be sitting in the back seat and say, "Daddy, I'm cold." And I would pull over to the side of the road on the interstate and take my coat off and wrap around her. So that gives you some indication of the closeness that existed between us. And I think that closeness is the glue that cemented our relationship, whether ups or downs, because it had a foundation. That foundation might be shaken, but it doesn't crack, because if it starts out with a solidarity, it survives everything. We can talk and never open our mouth. We can look at each other and have a complete conversation across the table and nobody knows that we're having it. And I think it helped us to endure many of the things that came along the way. Chapter number 3, first marriage and divorce. Let's talk a little bit about, after going through that, when you decided to get married, did you think that getting married would sort of bring a legitimacy and correction to your life? And were you disappointed when you ran into a bad marriage, a toxic relationship, and hard times? Was it a disappointment from what you had hoped it would bring you?
It was initially. I certainly thought that it would fix it. I think that you also have to realize that, like, while you were out and we were traveling, we would be in youth ministry. This is the peak of purity culture, where they would say things to girls like, if I took a sucker and passed it around this room, by the time we got to the last person, no one would want it. That's how your body is, you know. And if you don't have your virginity, then you're damaged goods. And they would be getting married to Jesus and wearing white dresses. And so here I am with a baby on my hip, and I'm thinking to myself, I will never be one of the good girls, ever.
Yeah.
I'll just never be one of the good girls. I lost. And so marriage felt like, and I think in many ways, the church is undoing some of this narrative for women in general, where it's marriage is the prize, not your intellect, not your education, not your entrepreneurship. If you get married, then you did it all. And so I think I fell for that narrative. It's not just in the church, it's in the culture too, right? Cinderella needs her Prince Charming.
Right.
And so if I get married, that'll fix everything. Now here I am married and y'all done lied to me. Excuse me.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do now? But I didn't realize that there is an element of reflection in the person who you partner with.
Right.
And the moment that I stopped being disappointed that I didn't get the fairy tale and started looking at the mirror of what is it about this dynamic that is feeding me, fueling me, hurting me, breaking me, and can I really stand living like this forever? And I thought to myself, you know what? I've already messed up. I've already messed up. What's another one?
Yeah.
For the sake of having one whole parent for my 2 children at that time versus 2 people, I was on my way to prison.
Yeah.
I was on my way to prison, and that's hand to the Bible. I mean, police, why are you ramming this car? I've told the story.
Yeah.
I was on my way to prison, and I thought, if I don't get out of this, we're talking life or death.
Yeah.
We really are. We're talking life or death. We're talking about foster care, and I just felt like, you know what? I've already messed up. Anything could be better than this.
See, people don't know that behind the preacher is a gangster.
They may know by the preaching a little bit.
Just a little bit. But don't let it shock you. There is a real gangster behind this person. And I have a little touch of it too. And so I can understand how you felt like that. It wasn't, people are always talking about preachers' kids. But I think it's a deeper thing than that. The only difference between preachers' kids and other kids is that you live up under the light and the heat that comes from that light of being on stage where everybody can see you. But the reality, there are a lot of people who were not preachers' kids, who had bad marriages, who went through divorces, who had children out of wedlock, all that kind of stuff. I think that the expectation that the preacher's kids inherit is that we're supposed to be these divine people that come down on a cloud and have angels with harps singing all around us. Truth of the matter is, our parents, my generation's parents, boomers' parents, were called the silent generation. Mm-hmm. They didn't say nothing, okay? And they taught you to keep your mouth shut, okay? So we were the generation that came along with what goes on in this house stays in this house. Yes, sir. Their generation didn't even bring up what goes on in the house, okay? So we brought it up, but we the guardrails on our silence was induced by the way that we were raised and the country. I mean, we grew up off of Mayberry, and I love Lucy, and Lucy and her husband never slept in the same bed. So, I mean, it wasn't a realistic expectation of life, but those were the images that were cast in front of us, and they were impossible to live up to. Do you think that a lot of people in your generation who keep it 100, which we had to come to grow into. I'm still growing into it a little bit. I keep it about 80. But the idea of keeping it 100, did it serve you well as you look back on it? Or does it open you up where you've got the whole world looking into your life and expecting you to just tell everything about everything?
Oh, that's such a layered question. I think it depends on the emotional wellness and state of the person who's sharing their story. Mm-hmm. Because I do think that if you're not well, when you share your story, you're sharing your story because you want to be affirmed, you want to be seen, you need to be liked, you want to feel better because maybe you didn't get that in other areas of your life. And now the internet represents the place of restoration, mm-hmm. where it'll fix the cracks in your self-esteem and your self-image. I do think that for people who utilize it, the way I want to think that I use it is that I don't share it until I'm ready for it to be criticized and praised, which means there's a certain level of healing, at least a scab, that has to be over what I'm sharing before I put it out in the world. because I recognize that I'm opening myself up to, all manners of opinions. What I will say is that I think it is serving me, and I think time will tell. In 30 years, I can say it was all a bad idea. 30 years, I could say delete the apps. It was terrible. But right now,
That's funny.
but right now, I feel like, especially in this transition, it's helping me to saw the legs off the pedestal before they can put me on it.
There was something that you said when we had Woman Are Loose at Lakewood, and that was your coming out to the world experience. You said, and I thought it was a very a shield, a very strong and effective shield. You said, it doesn't matter what you say about me. There's nothing that you can say or think about me that I had not said or thought about myself.
Yeah.
You disarmed the audience from being critical because you were self-deprecating in such a way that it put it on a scale where I think immediately people knew that you got it, that you had already suffered from it. And for the most part, it resonated with them in a very profound way. As you went forward from there and started to do Woman Evolve, you drew around you women inside the church and outside the church who did not have that kind of acceptance or strength always to keep it 100, regardless of the generation. Sometimes I think we are too stereotypical in our ideas about generations, because there are some old folks that keep it 100, and there are some young folks that keep things to themselves. So it has a lot to do with how you were trained, where you grew up, what region of the world, what culture you come from. All of that plays into the makeup and the mystery of you. And I think that's what makes us so fantastic, is that we are a mystery, gradually unraveled. And you are exactly right. 30 years from now, you may think differently than you do right now, and that's okay. Shame on you if you live 30 more years and still think the way you think now. You live 30 more years and didn't learn. If you learn one thing a year, in 30 years, you're going to be different. Not to say what you think now is wrong, but the times have changed.
You know what I think is hard about that reality? Because to your point, if our ideas aren't changing, then we're stuck. As we're being exposed, as we're gaining experience, if our perspectives aren't expanding, if not totally evolving from where they once were, then I think there's something wrong with that. The only issue with that is I think that the way that the internet and social media and chatter is set up is that it nails you to who you are now.
Correct.
And it doesn't give you space to say, oh, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm changing. And so a few months ago, I kind of came to this reality that I am going to make sure that everyone knows that I have accepted that life is a classroom, and I am a forever student. And so, yes, I'm the co-senior pastor. Yes, I'm the founder. Well, yes, all of those things that make you feel like, oh, she must have it figured out. I cringe reading my bio because I know when someone else is hearing that bio, that it sounds like this is a person who has it figured out. And I assure you from the bottom of my heart, I am literally just a girl sharing what I'm learning along the way. And I have to keep putting that in front of people, because they will dehumanize you.
Yes.
With achievement, they will dehumanize you with success and influence. And I can't tell people, hey, leave me alone, I'm off you. You know what I mean? Stay away. I can't help the fact that I have influence. I can't help it. I tried. It didn't work. And so now it's how am I going to navigate it? How am I going to be a steward of it? And I feel like my job is to constantly show you my scars, show you my wounds, and then point you to the one who has been a healer.
Right.
Showing you to the one who can show you how to keep walking. But if we do not, as leaders, make it our mission to keep our humanity in front of people, they will deify you.
Yeah.
And so it's hard, though, because when you put your humanity in front of people, you're opening yourself up for criticism.
Right.
So it is easier to just show the highlight reel.
Yeah.
But that just solidifies the dehumanization. And so you're going to see me in my bonnet. I'm going to be dressed.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch my wigs. I'm going to put on them clothes.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be in my bonnet. I'm going to be taking care of my kids. I'm going to be cooking. I want to make sure that you have a well-rounded view of what it means to be all of who I am. Not that I'm looking for your validation, but I just feel like you should have a full scope.
You are a very authentic person, and have grown to be an increasingly authentic person. And I don't think that I can think of many examples of people who have been as authentic. There are a few, but from the platform and the height and the global perspective of who you are, that takes a great deal of courage. And when I think about you, it reminded me of something. I was going through the Charlotte airport years ago. I was maybe your age. And I ran into Bishop Campbell, and he looked at me and he shook his head. He felt so sorry for me. He said, "You've lost something you'll never be able to regain." And I said, "What is that?" He said, "Normalcy," and kept on walking. And it haunted me, but it was so prophetic to the loss of normalcy, the loss to have a bad hair day, the loss of wearing a hair bonnet, the loss of being able to lose your wig while you're preaching.
And then I didn't preach for 6 weeks after that. I was like, I think I upset my father taking my wig off.
No, it didn't bother me.
I know, I called you to ask him, like, listen, you make the schedule. I haven't been up there since and then other people had their wigs on the altar. I said, Lord, we have really done it now.
Yeah, it was different. It was shocking.
It wasn't on purpose. I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, I know you didn't pick it. I know you weren't trying to be sensational, but the way you handled it, there's some kind of strength in not allowing the things you have to have you.
Yeah.
You know, I think that God doesn't mind you having things. I think he minds things having you. And whether wig or no wig, heels or no heels, kick my heels off, jump up and down, you've always never let any of that stop you from doing what he told you to do, which gets down to an unusual amount of focus that you have on your purpose and not just your person. And I think that's really fascinating. I'm wondering, do you think about it that way? Do you think about it from the perspective of your focus being your purpose rather than your person? Or do you, I know before you get up, you're thinking about you to some degree, but once you get up, do you get lost in your calling?
For sure. When I'm up there, the only thing that matters is what's happening in that moment.
Right.
Sometimes I watch clips of me preaching and it doesn't feel like who I am when I'm not preaching at all. Because the way I be up there cutting up is just complete surrender and passion for whatever the message is that God has given me. But I certainly take that very seriously. And then when it's over, I actually have protected my sense of normalcy. I think the privilege of being able to watch you lose yours.
Thanks. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sacrifice, Bishop, is that I'm fiercely protective over mine. And so you always talk about like how I could get off the stage and, you know, preach and the glory show up and people be at the altar and I will grab a paper bag and fried chicken and grab the girls and go home like nothing happened. Because for me, all that happened was God.
You are one of the few preachers that I have ever met in my life who can preach a message that is very explosive in the congregation. And as soon as you, not even to wait till you get home and start frying chicken, as soon as you get in the hallway, you act like, who? I didn't do that. You know, you have an ability to slip right back into that normalcy and be surrounded by your kids and your husband and exit.
Honey.
You exit like Elvis Presley, y'all. She can exit like Elvis Presley and be very comfortable in some house coat and some turnover shoes and making it do what it do. And you have never neglected being a mother and a wife for being a preacher. And I think sometimes career women and career men often forsake who they are at home because they feel like you have to make a choice. How do you manage being both things so proficiently? Chapter number 4, learning, growing, changing.
First of all, I want to say that part of the reason why when I get finished preaching that I just kind of log off is because for me, like, this is an offering. And I said everything God's told me to say, the best way I know how to say it. I study, and once I leave it up there, I did it. Like, this is my offering. My identity is with my family, and I realized that the only way that I can show up there is if I am who I am with them. I don't want to wreck the room and come home and my house feels a wreck too. I want to minister to my children the same way I minister to the people who are in the room. And it's really important to me that they feel seen, that they feel heard, and that I can pour into them with intention. And so maintaining that connection, I mean, when you got finished speaking, there were swarms of people around you.
Right.
But they ran over us to get to you.
Yeah.
And we didn't know how to translate that.
Right.
And so I think for me, like, Ella wants to grab my hand, and I know what it's like to wonder, like, is that person still my mom?
Right.
You know, like, does that person still care that I got homework tonight? And sometimes I worry that maybe I'm a little overkill with it. And I want to show them balance. But I think right now it's just really important to me, especially if we're in a transition, that I hang on to them in the midst of the transition.
I think you're bionic, in your ability to slip from one thing into another. I know that was a very difficult period in you all's lives, to be little kids and couldn't hardly get to me for all the people that were swarmed around me. My mindset at the time was, your mother's got you, okay? But you are their mother. Now, my mindset wasn't right because I didn't realize how significant a father's presence is to a child.
Yeah.
I learned that from you all. That when you start talking about always learning, I think that if you allow your ego as a parent to make you feel like you're always the teacher, you will miss the class. Because while you're teaching your children are teaching you. And I didn't see the significance of my presence around you all in that setting, and that you were intimidated by everybody calling me their dad. And, that's my spiritual father. And you all were over there fussing and murmuring amongst yourselves saying, no, that's my real father. What I was proud of was to learn that some kind of way we survived it and landed on our feet as a family. And I can see why a lot of families don't.
Yeah.
I can see why a lot of families fall apart. I can see why a lot of families end up substituting wholeness with self-medication. And the parent doesn't understand why the child is acting out, because you have relegated to someone else a role that only you can play.
I do think there's a level of emotional intelligence required to get to that space of reconciliation. But for me, how I've reconciled those difficult realities from my childhood is that if I were you and I did not have you, I would have done the same thing. The only reason why I am even conscious enough to not do the same thing is because I had a model and example. And I feel like that goes in both directions, right? The only reason why I could sit down and handle myself in an interview or to navigate large rooms without feeling small is because I had you. And so your life has been a lesson for me in many ways, but I can see how rapid it is to go from expecting rejection to overwhelmingly, I guess, accepted. And I do mean, I guess, accepted. Because you know what I mean? Like, it's not exactly acceptance, because it's Hosanna today and crucify him tomorrow. So to live in this consistent state of vulnerability where you have to serve people but not need them, but you do need them, because sometimes that's the way God loves us. That's the way you and you got to be in relationship with them. So you can't be staying off. But like, I get it. And I get how the last thing you're thinking is this 7-year-old girl wants me to hold her hand and take her for ice cream. That seems trivial in the midst of it all. I think what we know now is that it builds bonds and connection, and it is small, but long term it plays a role.
Absolutely.
But if I did not have you, I wouldn't know that. I would have done the same things. And so for me, it's well in my soul.
You are not going to make me cry up here.
I'm sorry, sir.
I'm
sorry, sir.
I'm telling you now.
I mean that though, and I think it's important that you hear that when I look at your life, that I don't look at it just from the lens of victimhood.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't just see the loss without the benefits, and that I realize that if I had your hand, I would have played it the same way.
Yeah.
And my children would maybe be sitting across from me one day saying, you won there and we did well there, but this area could have been better. I get that. And I think, thank you. Thank you for the sacrifices. Thank you for allowing your life to be a lesson in every sense of that word. Thank you for still showing up, even after hearing that maybe there were things that could have been better. It'd be so much easier to be like, you know what? I did the best I could do. Forget y'all.
Right.
But you keep showing up. And I think that you've shown up in times where you knew we were still trying to figure out what does a father relationship look like, or where we were still nursing wounds. You never abandoned us, and you didn't allow our hurt to make you stay away.
I never will.
Yeah.
I never will. I never will. That you can count on. I never will. Good or bad, up or down, famous or not famous, successful or failure, or bringing Oreo cookies to a jail cell, God forbid. But I never will. And then the other thing, to be honest, to be completely honest with you about the role of a father with children. My father got sick when I was 10. He died when I was 16. So without a pattern, it's hard to make a pair of pants and have no pattern.
Yeah.
So I never saw that. My grandfather died when he was 21 years old. He was murdered when he was 21 years old. My other grandfather was dead when I was born. So I didn't grow up with that role, and especially where daughters are concerned, because I knew what it was to be a son and have father hunger, but I did not know what it was, how important a father is to a daughter. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have to look at each other through the lens of what you had on the table was all you had to serve for dinner.
That's so good. I do think, because, my generation is very intentional about protecting their mental health, emotional real estate. And we have a generation where they're cutting their parents off.
Right.
Because they don't get it. They don't understand. They won't take ownership. And I think as much as it is important for us to make sure that we are protecting our mental and emotional real estate, that I think if there's a possibility for reunification, that it's going to happen with us removing our expectations. Mm-hmm. And if we are unwilling to set our expectations to the side, not because they're not legitimate, not because they don't matter, but if you're going to see this person as a person and not the parent that failed you, if you think about what it means to be a 15-year-old boy who's taking care of his father with an illness, whose grandfather is gone, and then that's the person who you want to pick you up and take you to ice cream and plait your hair and do all these things, like, how?
Right.
How?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I didn't have
my
that.
idea of fatherhood is primarily based off of things I've seen on television.
Yeah.
And some of the most iconic fathers on television were not iconic people off the screen.
Absolutely.
So none of this is real. You know what I mean? And I think there's a level of maturing that gets us to a space where we say, okay, well, none of this is real. Now, because I know this isn't real, but maybe this doesn't change the way the person's showing up in my life, what boundaries do I need to have? What distance do I need to create? Do I need to create? What kind of communication? Because I think you can do the planning after, but I think to really level the playing field, you got to look at the whole picture. Sometimes we're asking people to show up in ways they literally don't know how to show up.
That's true. And the other thing, we're asking them to be more perfect as parents than we were as children.
Yeah.
And it's I always say I can see everybody in the room but me. Now, I'm not talking about toxic relationships where you're physically abused and tormented and thoughtless parents and the ridiculous, horrendous things that some people have gone through, molested and all that kind of stuff. That's terrible, terrible stuff. But I'm talking about, I didn't take you for ice cream, or I was late for the prom, or that sort of thing. Or they didn't show up in the ways that you needed them to do, and maybe didn't even verbalize, or you verbalized and they weren't listening. All of that. If you throw your parents away, you probably end up throwing your children away.
Let me just, you think so?
Let me tell you why. Because they're gonna disappoint you too. And if you get in the habit of throwing away everybody who disappoints you, you end up with nobody. Husband, wife, siblings. You have to. Relationships are hard work.
We've got to have a generational conversation.
Okay. Okay.
The only thing I will offer to that perspective is that, and I think it's actually very admirable that we have a generation of people who are not wanting to have children, because I do think that everything in research suggests that parental presence is directly connected to the outcomes of children. And the only reason why I say you probably wouldn't throw your children away if you threw your parents away is because part of who we have become is a result of what we did or didn't receive from our parents. Of course, there are other environmental things that play a role, factors that play a role in that, and education and social, like there are all types of factors. But research has shown that when parents are there, and I think it's more than just take me for ice cream. I think ultimately, when a child is frustrated with a parent, whether it's a young child or an adult child, it's because I don't feel seen.
Which is also true about marriage. You can be married to somebody, sleep in the bed with them every night, and not feel seen. You can birth a child who's so quick to run out there and play with people their own age at times that you want to spend time with them. Your kids are little, well, you got all ages. You got up the ladder. But there's a certain point in their development that they don't want to hang with you anymore. So if you did hang with them when they were children, and then all of a sudden they don't want to be bothered with you, and you're running behind them and they're saying, oh no, I'll be back in a little while, or they come visit you on the holidays. My point is simply this: not feeling seen doesn't stop with childhood. It goes to work with you. It goes to church with you. It's being able to sing in the choir and they never call on you for a solo. It goes to being married to somebody who is not sensitized to your feelings. What I am saying is relationships are hard work.
For sure.
And you have to put the work in. And if you train yourself to always throw away something because it's hard, you end up with nothing, because everything's hard. Being an entrepreneur is hard. Going to work is hard. Going back to school, you're going back to school. I didn't add that to the mix. On top of everything else, this girl gets up like 4 o'clock in the morning and boxes in the morning. 4 o'clock in the morning, I am in a coma, okay? An absolute coma. And you go from sun up to sundown, and your children range in age from what to what?
They are 9, and my bonus baby is 28, from 9 to 29.
From 9 to 29. And she feeds all of them. She makes homemade biscuits. She makes rolls from scratch. She has Thanksgiving spreads like she's somebody's grandmother. She does all that stuff and still gets her hair done, gets her makeup on, and comes out there in those heels. But the girl you see on the stage with the heels is not the mama they see at home. She's not walking around her house with a boa around her neck. I mean, she's got flour up under her fingernails. And you went back to school. Why did you do that? What? You could easily, I mean, you've done enough now. You've had enough bestsellers. You've introduced yourself to the world. You've got a husband that loves you. You've got children that respect you. Why did you take on that extra weight?
I simply just don't feel like I've maxed out my potential. And I feel like there's a distance between my current dreams and my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for the type of impact that I think ultimately matters in the world, because right now, you know, the books and all that stuff, like that's cool for my name. But I want for Woman Evolve to really be a place where women have the opportunity to get practical resources to evolve from difficult circumstances, whether that's incarceration, being unhoused, teen pregnancy. And in order to really erect those types of programs, it does require a deep understanding of the research and what produces positive outcomes and programs that have been shown to be instrumental in producing those outcomes. And I could hire someone who knows the research and hire someone who understands it, but that's my ultimate heart and passion, is to really see it through and understand it and qualify it, because I want to put my name and my life's work behind it. And I just feel like at my age, I still have an opportunity to do the work required to go and get a degree. And if they say 4 years is going to pass, whether you do it now or later. And so that's what I want to do. I want to connect the dots, because I have this sensing, like, I think this is true. I think these could produce positive outcomes, but I don't have the research and the knowledge. And I want to go get it so that I can continue to unearth what God's placed inside me.
To be fair, you were almost finished anyway.
Yeah.
So you didn't have far to go to complete what you're trying to complete. Chapter number 5, Father's Heart Attack. This time a year ago, the Sunday before Thanksgiving, I was preaching in the church. I sat down in the chair. I felt fine. I sat down in the chair and had a massive heart attack. From a daughter's perspective, what was that like for you?
It was terrifying. I was at home with Ella, and so we were watching together, and she was immediately panicked. What's going on with Granddad? I didn't know for sure what it was. It looked like a stroke. If I had to have guessed, I'm like, it looks like, so I think I saw it on workout clothes. So I threw on a hoodie and I was just headed towards the church with no idea what was going on. I was afraid, but also felt very protective. One, I needed to be present for Ella, who was afraid, but then I needed to understand who's with my dad, who's taking care of him, what hospital is he going to, how do we make sure that he's protected and can have medical privacy when he gets there. And so I think a part of me really went into
Acting like your father.
Yeah, it wasn't like, now's not the time for a breakdown.
Right.
Like we're in a fight and we don't know what it is and we got to take care of him. So, calling security, what's the plan, what's the strategy? People were watching online. They're afraid, they're nervous, they love him. What is our messaging to them? We don't have anything to tell them yet. So very much so crisis mode. I was there by the time I beat the ambulance to the hospital, and I don't live close to the hospital, so that ought to tell you about how I was driving. And I saw them wheel you in, and I could tell that you were not totally there. But I think you said something, I don't remember what, and I thought to myself, he's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. Mom was frazzled. I mean, I'm talking to the nurses, your telephone number, your insurance. Like, now it just wasn't time for the breakdown. My husband was out of town, so it wasn't even like I could get someone else. And so I think me and Dexter were kind of manning things. But I will say, by the time I did have an opportunity to have a breakdown, you were cutting up in the hospital room. Which robbed me of my opportunity to have a breakdown. Just what we eating, and did y'all call this person, and did you take care of this? And I was like, you see, now I'm ready to have a breakdown, and you'd already made it to the other side, which, I was grateful, but also I didn't really process it fully, what that moment could have represented. I think it took me some time to get to a space to acknowledge the fear connected to it, but I had the victory before the fear could be processed.
It was amazing to watch how you walked in and started calling the right people, informing the right people, talking to the doctors. acting like your father. Protecting nobody goes in there. Nobody goes in there. Don't go near him, You turned exactly into me. And that was really, really nice. And I'm glad that I came out of it, that we get to laugh about it, we get to joke about it. And it's been a year.
Yeah.
And I'm doing pretty well.
We are.
Yeah. So thank you.
You were very obedient this time a year ago, too.
Yeah.
Want to run that back? We could do that, too,
What that mean?
Let me run things.
Yeah.
Be the bossy. So we got red stands.
Well, I didn't want to die.
Well, yeah, but now.
See, you all missed the point. See, let me explain this.
Okay.
I have a tendency to be bullheaded and go the extra mile when my wife's cure-all for everything is go to bed and lay down and rest. I'm the kind of person that will fight it.
The doctor's cure-all, though, just to be clear, with the doctor's cure-all this time.
Yeah, well, whatever it was, I did it. I did it and did it a lot, and took the medications and went through the therapy and did all the things that my wife had just got through doing with the knee replacement. Our life has not been what you think. She didn't walk for a year.
Longer, 2 years by the time we figured out what was going on.
Yeah, well, a year before the surgery and then a year in recovery. And so while we were dealing with all the other dramas that life brings to us, we were also dealing with her not being. In fact, Sarita didn't start walking until I started dying.
Okay. Well, okay.
And there I was having a heart attack. Was the first time she got up and started walking without any kind of cane or walker or anything. And she's been walking ever since. But I've surrounded myself with some strong people in my life and some strong women in my life. And I was just curious to wonder what that looked like from your point of view as a daughter. For me as a father, always being used to being the Superman and to be in a vulnerable condition. I didn't want them all over me. I was telling them, get back, I'll walk out of here. And, they were yelling at me to get in the wheelchair. And I was trying to walk because I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I did not realize that I was as sick as I was, that it was as serious as I was. And the first time I heard massive heart attack, I was in ICU. Yeah. And they were getting ready to do surgery. And I thought, my first reaction was to look over at the doctor and say, get out of here. Because none of the warning signs that I had read about, none of them had come along. I thought I needed hydration. It felt like that. I just fell asleep and went someplace quiet and beautiful and peaceful until I came back to myself, and then I started being bossy and cantankerous, like I always do. You inherited it, so don't criticize it. But that's the great thing about family. That's the great thing about family, that there's a little piece of your mother and a little piece of me in every step you take. And that will never go away.
Good.
Chapter number 6, Blending Families. Let's back up a minute and talk about blended families. You talked about your bonus children, and it made me think about, you married a pastor, one church, LA, you married a pastor who had gone through a divorce, okay? That's not uncommon now. We see more. You had gone through a divorce, bought a house here in Dallas, taking care of yourself, always been independent, always been resourceful, was getting a degree in accounting at first, and so you handled your money well, and you did all of that very well. So you didn't necessarily need somebody to help take care of you. You could take care of yourself. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that. One of my goals in life was to raise daughters that might want a man but don't need one in order to be able to be self-sufficient and be able to sustain themselves. You have lived up to that to the highest degree. But you you fell in love with this dude who's a pastor who turned out to be a wonderful guy after I examined him.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I examined him with a stethoscope, asked him everything you could think of in the world and looking in his eye like this, trying to see, because I never wanted you to ever be hurt again. What was amazing, though, his wife, who your bonus children that still have a relationship, of course, that's their mother, but she was in the church. I come out to California, y'all, to have dinner with my daughter and her new husband and some of his relatives and what have you. And my wife and I come out there. And I didn't even realize who the girl was until I looked past her. And my wife said to me, "You know who that is, don't you?" I said, "No." And she told me, and I said, "Get out of here." She is having his ex-wife over at her house for dinner. And you never made war. I think the world needs to hear. How did you do that? I mean, now she lives out here in Dallas. You know, she comes to church from time to time. We've interacted. And so the ex-wife and the new wife get along with each other without pulling each other's hair out.
Yeah.
And I saw you put the work into that, and her put the work into finding a way to make it work. Talk to people who are going through the complications of blended families, baby mama drama, ex-wives, ex-husbands. Very few people navigate that kind of stuff very well.
Well, you know, I have to say, I think it's multi-layered, in that her PT was very honoring in their transition and their divorce. And so to my knowledge, there wasn't any vitriol towards him. And so, I mean, obviously you're not married to someone that long and it's just a happy separation,
Right.
But there wasn't this deep sense of betrayal and dishonoring. And so it was as amicable as a divorce can be. So complicated. But when he and I got married, I think we wanted the same things for the kids. And I didn't want to bring my kids into a toxic situation. And I don't think she wanted her kids in a toxic situation. I don't think that she would have volunteered to go to dinner to me. I wouldn't have volunteered to go to dinner with her. But do we want Isaiah's homework turned in? For sure.
Yeah.
Do we want him on time for his field trip? Absolutely. And, you know, no slight to PT, like he's not necessarily in the nuts and bolts of like what kind of snack does he need and does he need a paper sack lunch today. And so I was communicating with him, like trying to get information as the kids were coming over. And finally, it's kind of like, can I just talk to her directly? And we wanted the same things for the kids. And then she was likable. Like we laughed at the same thing, like, girl, this teacher get on our nerves. And we began to build a rapport primarily because we wanted the same thing for the kids. And so I think that if you're blending a family, the first thing you have to do is make sure that you and your partner have the same goals and ideas for what successful family and parenting looks like before you even include the external or ex-partners. It's like, do you and this person have the same ideas about what family looks like, what marriage looks like? When PT and I were first blending our family, I didn't discipline his children. He did discipline mine. We have a little huddle. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate. How do we handle it? And then whoever had the closer bond showed up for that child until we got to know one another. We dated with the children. So we would take the kids on group dates so that they weren't just thrust into this family dynamic. And so I think that those types of things laid a foundation, but ultimately the mutual desire to create a safe haven for the children allowed us to blend the family. And I think that it's difficult when people aren't at a space yet where they aren't over the hurt, they aren't over the separation, they still feel in some way they were wrong. And so they want to hold the partner accountable by how they show up in the relationship with the children. And I think that there is a level of healing, forgiveness, release that you have to have in order to preserve what's left for the children and their childhood and future. And I think that we were on the same page about that.
Yeah, that's very unusual. I mean, one thing, I see what you mean, that the common bond was the welfare of the children and what was best for them. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's supposed to be the primary goal. But that's also very, very difficult because there's insecurities, you know. Who wants your ex-wife or ex-husband hanging around, you know? If you had to be very secure in your relationship with PT. He had to be very integrous in his relationship with her.
Yeah.
Very seldom do you find these ideal situations. There's simple jealousies. You got your arm around her. I don't want to see you with your arm around her. You know, you all are kissing in the kitchen. I back out of the kitchen. There's all kinds of stuff that can go wrong, which goes back to my original point. Just because something is hard doesn't mean you throw it away.
Yeah.
And you work through it. And I watched you work through it with grace and be nice and fix plates and do all of that kind of stuff. And I watched her act like you were cool, you know, and I think there's something that our world needs to learn from that. Not just marriages, but the country. We kill anybody who's different. We destroy, belittle. We got to be better than somebody else. We're losing our sense. PT preached a message recently. The love of many has waxed cold.
Yeah.
That phrase just stays with me. The love of many has waxed cold. You had to have a warm love that enabled you to do that, where you put others above yourself. And I think when you are narcissistic, you have a proclivity that says, it's about me. It's not about her. This is our house. I don't want her in our house. This is our dinner table. I don't want her around our table. Or her saying, I ain't coming in her house. I don't want to sit around her table. You have to, there is no love without sacrifice. The cost of love is sacrifice to some degree. Not abuse,
Right.
but you have to give an inch to hope for a mile. Do you agree?
Totally. And that's not to say that we didn't have challenges, because she and I talked about this on my podcast.
Okay.
Because like I sent the kids home with cookies. She said she threw the cookies in the trash and fell. You know what I mean? Because I don't care how. And then she said one day she tried them. She's like, I'll never throw those cookies away. And when our oldest daughter was getting married, she wanted her dad and her mom to walk her down the aisle, and I couldn't help it. And I was officiating with her, with my husband. And so PT and his ex-wife or her mom and dad are walking her down the aisle, and I'm sitting there as the officiant, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, I'm sure that this is what they dreamed of.
Right.
You know what I mean? When they first got married, no one gets married to get divorced. They probably thought that they would have this moment together. And so recognizing that our love and life has modified and altered that story. It makes me compassionate as well. When we went dress shopping for that same daughter, I took the picture of them together. And then she goes, no, we want you in it too. And so I do think that there's this level of empathy, because I'm like, no one's going dress shopping thinking that their husband's new wife is going to be with them. I'm cool. I'll take the picture.
You're right.
And after I took the picture, she's like, I want you in it. And so I do think that she has the same compassion that I experience in the children I've seen firsthand from their mother. And I respect that, because the compassion and love I experienced from her children has made my home better.
When you start talking about women in general, not just this case here, how do you avoid being defensive?
Well, I think context is that I haven't always been a girl's girl, because I felt like women who were better than I was, who didn't have the scars that I didn't have, who were more successful than I was, thought that they were better than me. And so I thought I'd beat them to the punch and being judgmental and critical with them. And so, which made me defensive with other women. So I see women who aren't at a space where they're ready to support and encourage other women as women who are still healing. Because there's no way that you can really live in the fullness of what it means to be a woman. The difficulty that comes with that, the beauty that comes with it, the challenges, and look at another woman and hate on her unless there's a part of you that hates a bit of yourself. And so wow. I don't take it personally.
Wow, that's a statement. You're going to let that soak in for a minute. In other words, you're reflecting.
Mm-hmm.
you're reflecting the anger that you have toward her. You're reflecting. I think that's also true with men. I've never seen a man who beat his wife and loved himself.
Why do?
Chapter number 7, ex-husband cheating. I think there's some kind of deflection where you substitute the anger and the hostility of your own insecurities and failures and transpose it onto the woman you're with, or take the anger that you had for your mother and respected her too much to execute it and put it out on your wife. And so there has to be a lot of introspection. What would you say to women who think strength is anger? You know, because this is the age where, pop my neck, I'll tell you right, you don't come, you know. What would you say to women who think strength is anger? And I suppose it would also be true for men, because there are men who are very, very angry. What's the answer?
I would say to a woman who has learned that strength is anger, that anger is strength rather, is that I'm sorry. I would say I'm sorry that was true for you. That the only way that you could survive was to be angry, that you couldn't afford to be emotional or vulnerable, that anger was the only way that you could survive whatever you went through. And then I would offer her a perspective that maybe she doesn't have to be angry forever. That maybe the anger was necessary for the moment you were in there then, but that perhaps life has changed. And if life has changed, maybe releasing anger so that you can experience what's available in this moment may be maybe the strongest thing you can do.
I hate that you gave a better answer than what I was going to give. That gets on my nerves just a little tiny bit. Just a little tiny, itsy-bitsy bit.
The only reason why I said it that way is because I used to love being angry.
Right.
Oh, I loved it. Oof, I can feel it right now. She yelling it somewhere on the inside of me. Because it felt like you're not going to get over on me. I won't do it. I won't allow it. I will protect myself. Absolutely not. I loved it. It was my way of saying absolutely not. But then I got tired of feeling like I needed to protect myself and putting myself in positions where I had to pull from that.
Yeah.
And I think having to exercise the muscle of pulling from something different, like joy, like peace, like courage, requires you to let go your definition of what it means to feel alive and to feel strong. And so I have compassion for the woman who felt like she always needs to be angry and angry with strength, because she's had to protect herself.
I can't speak from a woman's point of view, but from a man's point of view, anger often is the only emotion that we are allowed to feel.
And that's sad.
Big boys don't cry. So we don't have a full vocabulary to express emotional intelligence. For the most part, there are exceptions to the rule. The other thing is anger. Everything that affects us expresses as anger, because anger is the camouflage that hurt wears, not to be seen. And for men, a lot of times the anger is a faux strength. Okay, you're gonna respect me if you come up in here. You're not coming up in my house. All that need to go there. What did you say? All of that stuff. I'm really afraid you're gonna leave, or nobody stays. But it's easier for me to be mad about it rather than to admit to myself I miss you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I said that or I did that. I'm sorry I let you down in that way. Not feeling reassured that my apology will be accepted. Maybe because I'm a repeat offender. Maybe because I have not resolved the issues. It takes a long time to grow up. And it's embarrassing to be 40 and 50 and still have 18-year-old, 20-year-old problems. Yeah. It's embarrassing. So it's always nice to just get mad and blow up and storm out the house. But it's camouflage.
Yeah.
And no matter how much you wear camouflage in the forest, you are still not a tree. And so I would say to the men, You have to be prepared to risk coming out from under your fig leaves, is how the Bible was said, or coming out of your camouflage and face your own hurt and insecurity in order to begin to get well. You can't heal if you can't admit what it is that you are feeling. Okay, if I go to the doctor and I tell him my toe is hurting, but I really got a toothache, and he puts some mercurochrome on my toe, and I go out with my face swollen and throbbing, it's not that I had a bad doctor. I never would admit where the pain was really coming from, and we have to be introspective enough to get down to where the pain is really coming from. So from a male perspective, that's my answer. I just thought I might sure is better. Were you ever almost arrested and had to go to the CPS office to keep your kids? Tell the story.
Okay, well, we talking about anger. That's a great segue coming off of anger, Bishop. Anger is exactly what I was feeling. I was in my first marriage, and we were having dinner, and I looked out the window and I saw my husband at the time, his car was running, which I thought was strange. And he was upstairs. So I was like, I'm going to sneak outside the house and see why is his car running. I think I knew that there was someone in the car. And when I got there was a woman in the car. And I was like, what are you doing with my husband? And she told me, we're kicking it. And I thought, you know what else likes to kick it? Me. I too like to kick it. So I got in my car and I went forward and reverse over and over again into the car while she was in it. And he came outside hearing the clamor and thinking to himself, what in the world could be happening here? And he called the police on me. And when he called the police on me, mind you, I'm living in Virginia. So there's an element of isolation.
Yeah.
It's not like I think if I were living anywhere else, I probably would have grabbed the kids. I'm going to my parents' house. But I'm there by myself. And I don't have anywhere else that I can go. I had this one friend, but I'm not going to go to her house in the middle of the night, me and my kids. So I'm there and essentially on my own. And they called the police on me, and the officer came up to me, and the car's still there because I blocked them in from the ramming it over and over again. And he goes, what seems to be the problem here, ma'am? And I go, well, my husband brought his girlfriend to our house, and I had a problem with that. And he goes, okay, I'm going to go talk to them. And he talked to them, and he came back to me, and he's like, listen, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm not going to give you a ticket. I'm not going to arrest you, but I am going to have to write you up because you've got kids in the house. And because you have kids in the house, they're going to have to do a welfare check for you and the children. And so he drove off with her, literally stayed the night with her, left the next day to go to work. And I packed up the kids and I went home because I knew I was on my way to prison. I couldn't afford to keep getting angry like that without risking spending some serious time in prison or losing my children.
I'm not sure.
Where I got that rage from?
Oh, no.
Not sure what the next question is, but just thought I'd throw that out there. Come on, Bishop.
I don't
Come
like
on,
this.
next chapter. tell him the truth.
Yes, I know where you got it from. Yes. I have a little tad of it myself to pull my camouflage back. Yeah, I can get with you if I have to. But I'm gonna switch subjects.
Praise the Lord. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go.
Chapter number 8, Finding a Partner. This is testing. I'm a boomer asking you about a generation of music that I might mess up. But have you heard of this singer named Sierra?
Yes.
Sierra's Prayer.
Oh, yes. What? Yes. What do you want to know about Sierra's prayer?
Well, see, you don't give me no credit.
Okay,
I'm still hip. I'm still hip.
Go
I'm
on.
still hip.
Uh-huh.
What prayer do you believe women should say? Women looking for a mate, what should they be praying for?
I don't subscribe to that because that looking for a mate thing really jacked my life up. So
As we just got through talking about. Yeah.
And I do think that we have an opportunity to show women that their value is beyond the role that they have in partnership. Having said that, I have an incredible husband and I love him tremendously. I did not pray for a man. I did not pray for another marriage. I prayed instead that God would search my heart that God would reveal to me the areas in my life that he wanted to heal and develop, and that I would qualify every person that came into my life as a part of that. Either I was being a part of their healing and development, or they were going to be a part of mine. And anyone who would take away from that health, that God would highlight them and give me the strength to walk away from them. And so when I met Teray, I was met with a dilemma. Because though I was completely satisfied in my relationship with my children and my relationship with God and my life here in Dallas, I bought my house. I'd lived there for over a year. There was a part of me that knew that he was a part of God's next health for your life.
I had a dilemma too when you came and told me you were moving to California.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
Because I was finally like, ooh.
Yeah. That was. I can still remember standing at the door watching your car pull off. That's what I mean about attachments and learning to allow your children to have their own life and family, rather than to say, I didn't lose a daughter, I gained a son. That sounds nice. But in reality, for this cause shall a man leave his mother and father, take unto him a wife, they become one flesh, and you're building family. So sometimes we're having Thanksgiving dinner and you're cooking Thanksgiving dinner, and letting that family have its own identity and develop its own culture comes with maturity. That all roads don't lead to your house all the time, and being able to come to your house for Thanksgiving dinner. That's a transition for people who are used to being in control. I'm not talking about anybody.
That felt personal.
not talking about anybody I know, but I heard I got a friend of mine allegedly, yeah. But freedom. Love without freedom isn't really love.
Yeah.
And you have to let people go so that they can be their highest and best self. I have to say this to you before we cut off. You seem to have sustained. You have celebrated your 10th year.
Yes.
10th year of marriage. If you argue, I never heard it. If you fight, I've never seen it. We call PT Kumbaya, but there's another side to him. What would you say is the secret in a time where people divorce in 3 years and 4 years? What have you learned about life that keeps you coming home and keeps him coming home every night?
That who I married 10, almost 11 years ago is both who I'm married to now and not. And I think that when I got married the second time, that I wasn't expecting to settle into someone. I was choosing who I wanted to grow with. And I feel like when you enter marriage with the perspective that this person's going to change and I'm going to change, the question is, can we change together and still feel at our core connected to one another? And so I think that above all, we have a friendship. When we do get ready to fuss or, have a disagreement, like he'll come in there and I just be like, he looks at me a certain way, I look at him a certain way. He's like, you was tripping, right? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? Like we can have that type of dialogue. I can tell him, I can introduce myself to him. I can say that I feel like I'm changing. I don't feel like myself. And he listens and he responds to that. So I think friendship, I think being willing to introduce yourself over and over again to one another as you change, and to be willing to accept that I'm not in control of this journey. I'm just here to support it. And so I would say, if I had to ask anyone or to prepare anyone for marriage, I would say, can you marry this person right now as they are without anything changing and feel like you can spend the rest of your life with them? And if you can say that, that's a big step. Because a lot of times we're like, I want them to, I want them to do that. And it's like, don't get married, because you're counting on those things growing and changing and developing, and they may not. But if you can marry this person as is, that's the start. And then the second thing is, can you be flexible enough for when they change? In either direction, towards growth and sometimes toward deterioration. And can you be in the tension of that? But I think the foundation of friendship and acceptance helps you to have flexibility as life shifts you from season to season.
I agree with that. I also think that sometimes you marry your opposite because they're different from you. And you date and you say, he was born in September and my mother was born in September and both of us, our birthdays are on the 15th. And we came from the same state. We went to the same school. But yet you end up marrying somebody whose personality fills the gap in yours. They are courageous where you are vulnerable. They are vulnerable where you are courageous. And then after you learn all of that about them, then you start trying to change them, like somebody buying a fixer-up house.
Yeah.
And if you don't see your role as fixing the other person, but accepting the other person, and drawing joy, it's like your mother fixing the house up for Christmas. If I was single, there would not be a bulb on the coffee table. Okay, nothing that I got to take down again. However, I enjoy her enjoying it, and found out that's important to her, and that gives her something that I can appreciate because it brings her joy. And she enjoys what I enjoy because she understands that I'm not like her. I don't like isolation. I'm not an introvert, though I'm becoming one. The older you get, you start becoming like each other, and it changes everything. I've spent the last hour or so bantering, talking, sharing with you, sitting here thinking what it's going to be like when you're sitting here and Kenzie or Ella are sitting over there. I hope it's as wonderful of an experience as it is for me to stand here, to sit here, to look into the eyes of my daughter and talk to you and be so proud of what you have become.
Well, that's gross. I think that. I feel things.
You feel things.
I feel things.
Don't camouflage.
No, so feel.
Yeah. No, that's very, very true. I'm in awe of all the things you manage simultaneously. I'm in awe in how you self-correct. I'm in awe of how you are willing to take on new tasks and willing to be wrong and willing to get it right and willing to do it over and willing to give a part of yourself to the world, knowing that in so doing, you're giving a part of yourself to people who don't always appreciate the gift that you gave, and yet you keep on giving. That compassion and that ability to give is a God gift. To continue to give and not expect anything in return, but get back up there and do it again, especially when it's not your nature to be up there in the first place. And I know that, and you know that, but the people who watch don't know that. Chapter number 9, Gender Roles. Evidently, a recent article came out with Holly Berry talking about her husband saying that he didn't want to be in a relationship because of the gender roles had become blurred. Are gender roles still appropriate? Do they still exist?
Well, because I grew up watching you cook and Mom says she hates cooking. I think that I've always had this perspective that the roles aren't as rigid. But I do think that as we even see some emotional flexibility within men, that we are seeing some flexibility in what it means to show up as a man and a woman in different relationships with women, sometimes being higher earning than their male counterparts. It has had to make us kind of get out of this mentality of what it means to be a man or what it means to be a woman. I think that there's a space for every expression of who a person is. And I think that it's a good thing that we're seeing gender roles be challenged and limited so that we can determine what is authentic to who we are versus what is just trying to fit into someone's box. And where do we have space to maybe want to learn, and where do we want to stay the same?
The very fact that we call it roles implies acting.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to start not with the gender, but with the acting.
Yeah, right.
And not have a prescripted understanding of what, just because I'm a man doesn't mean that I may pay bills well, or that I make the most money, or that I can't cook, or that I can't sew.
Yeah.
Just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you made the best biscuits. So letting people do what they're best at doing,
Right.
it's not a role. It's letting me be me.
Yeah.
And then fitting our marital construct around our strengths.
Yeah.
And let whoever, if you exceed at making money and I exceed at raising the kids, that's okay. There's still room for both of us at the table, or vice versa. We tried to do what we do best. I went out and earned the living. I always was the breadwinner, but your mother sat down and paid the bills. If I had to sit down and pay the bills, nobody would ever get paid. I had the money sitting up in the bank account. She's good at that. She doesn't mind that, and she'll trace down every little penny. I'm more prepared to be the provider, but not the distributor.
Yeah.
And I think part of the mystery of marriage is figuring out who's really good at what they're doing and who gets fulfillment out of doing what they're doing, and let them do that rather than prescripting a role. And I think this is what happens in a lot of marriages, because in my day, women played with doll houses, and they had an idea of what the husband should be, and they're looking for a guy to play a role that he's never read the script.
Yeah.
Let me meet me, not let me try out for a role in a play that you've already evaluated and you throw me away because I didn't audition well. Meet me, love me, accept me, and as long as I am a contributing factor and not a deterrent in your life, then let's craft what works best for us and keep everybody else, in-laws and neighbors, out of our business, because the marriage is personal.
Yeah.
That was one of the best advice I got when I was getting ready to get married to your mother, is that marriage is personal, and it's not a one-size-fits-all, and you don't have to live up to anybody else's expectations. Chapter number 10, Woman Evolve. So tell me this. I've seen Women That Are Loose merge into Woman Evolve. Woman Evolve was already going when Women That Are Loose was out there. I didn't want to be on one end of the country hollering Women That Are Loose and you on the other end of the country hollering Woman Evolve. And I felt like you're a woman. So I can turn that over to you. Now they fuse together and become one entity. What is your vision for Woman Evolve?
It's interesting. So we had Woman Evolve after the transition at Globe Life Field, where for 2 years in a row, we saw basically 40,000 women. And we had to downsize because that stadium wasn't available for 2025. And in downsizing, we actually moved over into an overflow section at Georgia World Conference Center. And so we had 20,000 in State Farm Arena, but then we had this overflow expo experience. And it taught me a valuable lesson about what growth looks like, because the average person may say, hey, we have to downsize, we're losing ground. But in downsizing, it allowed me an opportunity to drain. That space at Georgia World Congress Center showed me that there is an untapped potential as it relates to the Woman Evolve experiential opportunity. And so it shaped how I dream in totality about Woman Evolve. What does it look like to tell this story in many different facets, not just with live events, but how do we tell the stories of women who are struggling to evolve? How do we tell the story of women who've made it to the other side? And so I do think in many ways that I'm looking, our motto is no woman left behind, is looking for the woman who has been left behind and creating connection points through content, experiences, social media that allows her to feel seen, loved, and then space to grow and evolve. And so I'm dreaming a different dream about our experiences, but also about our overall imprint as it relates to media in general.
Do you foresee a time that you would ever have multiple locations, even on multiple continents?
For sure. Mm-hmm. For sure.
That's good. That's what I thought too. We heard some horrible stats recently. Over 300,000 Black women have left the workforce, lost their jobs.
Left, please. The heavy water because some of them have been forced out.
Pushed out. Most of them pushed out.
Yeah.
Forced out. Many of them were breadwinners. Those of them that were not primary breadwinners contributed to the welfare of their family. So while we look at that 300,000, which is a huge number, it affects hundreds of thousands more people who are affected by that sort of thing. How can we continue to empower women economically who are dealing with the adversity of the times that we're living in now?
What's funny is before we had that stat about Black women leaving the workforce, we had statistics about Black women in education and Black women in entrepreneurship, almost as if there was some type of preparation in advance for this downfall. I think that now more than ever that we have an opportunity to take care of one another. Historically, Black women have taken care of not just themselves, but other people in their communities. And I think those who are in positions of power, those who have been educated, now have no choice but to figure out, how do I, again, try and figure things out for my community? But this time, I'm hoping that we're able to do it with the sense of collaboration and with the tools and resources that were afforded to us before this transition. I want to believe that the pendulum will swing again, as we know that history has this, cyclical nature. But I think in the meantime that we have to encourage one another to take care of one another. And that means not waiting for someone to say what they need, but being curious about our sisters. If I was in her situation and I still had a job, if I were in her situation, I was raising these children, what would I need and how can I take care of her? We're going to have to be proactive in taking care of one another and sowing into one another's dreams.
Chapter 11, Celebrities Are People Too. You at 1LA, when you were out there pastoring with being the first lady for Pastor Torrey, you all had like Tina Knowles come to your church on a regular basis. You're right in the middle of Hollywood. So there was Brandy would come by, different people would come by your church, Kelly Rowland and many others. How did that affect you, and how do you think you affected them?
I think, if anything, it helped me to see that people are people no matter how big and fancy their names and titles are, that we all need the same Jesus, that this world is hard on each of us in different ways and unique capacities. And I think that hopefully we created a space where, we didn't do like, oh, here's VIP seating and here's VIP entrance. They just came in, sat down, got what they needed and left. And so I think in normalizing their place of encounter, that hopefully it made them feel like there's a safe space to just be human. And I think for me, it's a reminder to never be mesmerized by who a person is and forget that God may be giving you something that person needs, and to balance those scales.
Wow. So you weren't intimidated by who they were. You dealt with the personhood, because you and I talked earlier about understanding the difference between what you do on stage and who you are, and losing normalcy. A lot of people don't see famous people as normal people, and they take pot shots at them easily because they get to have an other. Look at those other people, and they demonize and criticize what often they are praying to be.
Yeah.
And they need a place to go and to counsel and to get healed and to get restored and to get encouragement, even if it's not perfect, even if they're not perfect. The other people in the pews aren't perfect either. but finding a way. We can't have people that are untouchable because we're more concerned about our brand than we are the welfare of people. You have to be willing to get your hands in the dirt. The first thing we see about God is that he got his hands dirty.
Yeah.
When Jesus comes with the woman caught in adultery, he got his hands dirty. And you got to be willing to get your hands dirty and have people walk away from you. And you've done that, and I think it's an exciting thing. Chapter number 12, Acceptance and Rejection. How have other women preachers received?
Initially, I feel like they didn't really understand if I was a woman preacher or not, which to be fair, I didn't either. So we were all in the same boat of confusion. I don't know, because I'm not as traditional as some of the preachers who I grew up listening to are, but I'm not as laid back as some of the other. So I don't think they really knew what to do with me, but there have been some really incredible veterans in women's ministry that have loved on me and taken care of me. Marissa Farrow, and I was blogging when Marissa Farrow was preaching. She's been an incredible just ally. I do think that there's a generation of just like, I would call us up and coming women preachers that are building bonds and connections. But I think initially everyone's trying to find their footing and no one really knew what to do with me. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And so it's settling now.
Good. That's a good thing, because having a circle of people who get you, it doesn't have to be a big circle. Jesus had Peter, James, and John. But a circle who's ride or die is very, very valuable, because this is hard.
You know what I want to fix? And because you mentioned it and because I said it as well, I think it's worth exploring, not here, but I think as a part of just my process and relationship with God, is the expecting rejection. I don't think that's good. I want to fix that, because I do think it changes and shapes the way I show up in ministry and perhaps in the world and what I expect or don't want from people. And I don't want to live my life expecting rejection, but I don't want to need acceptance. But I do think to expect differently is something that I want to focus on in my next chapter. Like, how do I chose this expectation? Not for nothing. We stepped into the Potter's house as co-senior pastors after the Bishop Joyce. And there's an element of expecting rejection there. And it haunts me, this idea of you're going to be rejected from pregnancy to now. And I feel like for this next chapter of my life, I want to shed the skin of expecting rejection, but I don't know what I'm going to put on instead.
I don't know if this is an answer or not, but Job, Noah, after the flood, got drunk.
Yeah. So what are you saying?
No.
So
No, I'm not saying.
Okay, all right, just checking.
In the process of getting drunk, one son in somewhere, now the scholars debate about it, took advantage of him.
Yeah.
But nobody talks about the sons that covered him.
Yeah.
And I think you stop worrying about rejection when you have a circle of people around you that insulate you, and not condoning wrongdoing or anything like that, but insulate you and are ride or die, as we would say. They become a blanket. Now, the same guy who covered them, that brought them through the flood, they got reciprocity.
Yeah.
That if whatever you want, you give.
Yeah.
If you want love, you give love. If you want a smile, you give smile. And I think it comes back to you. It's an investment. It takes time. You're on the ark together, but it comes back to you. And it doesn't always come back to you from every son or every person, but it comes back to you in enough quantity that we don't read about Noah getting drunk again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you will allow the people in who have the blanket, it will somehow balance out the people who seek to defile you in some way.
Sure.
You have been listening to my next chapter, our next chapter. What about your next chapter? How are you navigating that chapter? And hopefully something that we said or did today in some way has helped you to navigate some sensitive situation, relationship on the job, in the home, in the marriage, and with the ex-wife, with the ex-husband, or just navigate your own emotions. The one thing that's wonderful, grace allows us to have a next chapter. Not everybody gets to have one. Somebody's book just closed. Yours has not. You have the pen. Write your next chapter. I'm TV Jakes, and I'm glad to have an opportunity to be your host and to have my wonderful guests, my daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts. Hey everybody, I want to take this time to thank you for watching the Next Chapter podcast. If this conversation inspired you, helped you reflect on an idea or spark something new inside of you, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Remember, life isn't about how you begin, it's about how you finish strong. So start your next chapter with us right here every week.